Every 4 years, the world agrees on something for 90 minutes at a time. You know the feeling. Your phone buzzes, and it's not one notification, it's 12, all at once, all saying the same thing. Somewhere, a stadium is screaming. Somewhere, a street is honking horns that have nothing to do with traffic. And for those 90 minutes, billions of strangers who disagree about almost everything are, for once, feeling the exact same thing at the exact same second. And you probably know someone like this. Maybe it's a coworker, a sibling, your own partner, or even yourself. The match is on, the room is loud, and they're just there. Not annoyed, not pretending to care, just somewhere else entirely, even while sitting in the same room. It's a little like watching someone get handed the same gift everyone else is unwrapping with excitement, and they just set it down without opening it. Not rude, not ungrateful, just unmoved by something that's supposed to move everyone. And here's the part almost nobody talks about. That person isn't broken, indifferent, or missing whatever gene makes the rest of the room light up. In most cases, they're doing something far more deliberate than the people cheering. Now, if you're one of the billions who felt that hair raise on the arm moment when the ball hit the net, this isn't about you being shallow or easily swept up. That reaction is real, and it's earned. This isn't a video that picks a side. This is a video about the other reaction, the quiet one. The one that doesn't get talked about because it doesn't make noise. Because most people assume the non-watchers are just indifferent, bored by sports, contrarian by nature, missing whatever switch gets flipped in everyone else. But indifference is actually rare. What's really happening is something most people have never had a name for. And by the end of this, you'll probably realize you've either lived it or watched someone you love live it without ever understanding why. Think about what watching a match actually asks of you. 90 minutes, no multitasking that counts, no real productivity, just sitting, watching something unfold you have zero control over. For a lot of people, that's not relaxing. That's uncomfortable in a way they can't quite explain. There's a restlessness that creeps in around minute 15. A voice that starts listing everything else they could be doing right now. And it's not that the match is boring, it's that stillness itself feels wrong. Psychology has a name for exactly what's happening here. It's called identity-based self-regulation. When a behavior conflicts with how someone sees themselves, the discomfort isn't really about the behavior, it's about the threat to identity. If you've built your sense of self around being someone who produces, who's always moving, always optimizing, always one step ahead, then 90 idle minutes doesn't read as rest. It reads as a contradiction of who you think you are. Picture someone who hasn't sat still without their phone in over a year, not because they're addicted to it, because stillness for them has quietly become evidence of falling behind. So when the match starts and everyone else settles in, they're up after 10 minutes, folding laundry, checking Slack. Not because they don't care who wins, because some part of them is keeping score on a completely different scoreboard, and sitting still doesn't move the needle on it. It's not that they can't enjoy the game, it's that enjoying it would mean pausing the identity they've spent years building. But that's only half the story, because there's another version of this. Someone who can sit still just fine, who has no problem with idle time. Their resistance isn't about stillness at all. It's about something the match asks of them that feels far more dangerous than wasting 90 minutes.
Here's the thing about a match. No matter how loud you scream at the screen, you don't get a vote. The outcome is already being decided by 22 people you'll never meet on a field you're not standing on, and nothing you do changes it. For some people, that's exactly the appeal, the surrender of it, the permission to just feel something without having to fix it. But for others, that exact same powerlessness is unbearable. And it's not because they're control freaks, it's because somewhere along the way, investing emotionally in something they couldn't control cost them. Psychology has a name for what's driving this. It's called locus of control. specifically a learned shift toward protecting yourself from outcomes you can't influence. When someone has been burned enough times by caring about things outside their hands, a job that let them go no matter how hard they worked, a relationship that ended no matter how much they gave, the nervous system starts drawing a line. It stops attaching feeling to anything it can't steer, and a ball going into a net is about as far outside anyone's control as it gets. Picture someone who used to get fully invested in their team, in outcomes, and hope. Then life handed them a string of situations where caring hard changed nothing. So now, without ever deciding to, they've started screening every emotional investment for one question: can I actually affect this? If the answer's no, some part of them quietly declines before the feeling even has a chance to start. The match doesn't get rejected because it's unimportant. It gets rejected because it's just one more thing on a long list of outcomes they've learned not to hand their hope to. So now we've got two very different people who look identical from the outside, both sitting quietly while everyone else cheers. One is protecting their identity, the other is protecting their hope. And there's a third version of this that has nothing to do with control or stillness at all. This one isn't about protection, it's about something that was simply never built in the first place. Ask anyone who lives and dies by a team how it started, and they almost never say, "I chose this." They say a story, a dad who never missed a match, a grandfather's old jersey, a summer where a win felt like the best day of their childhood. The team was never really the point. It was the doorway into a memory they wanted to keep walking back through. So what happens to someone who never got handed a story like that? Psychology points to something called narrative identity, the idea that we don't attach to things in isolation, we attach to the meaning a story gives them. Without an origin story, there's no emotional thread to follow. It's not that the person rejected the game, it's that nothing ever handed them a reason to let it in. Picture someone who grew up in a house where nobody watched. No couch tradition, no shared jersey, no loss that mattered enough to talk about for years afterwards. So now, as an adult, watching a match doesn't feel like nostalgia. It feels like trying to laugh at an inside joke nobody explained to you. Everyone around them is reacting to a memory. They're just reacting to a ball. This isn't a deficiency. It's an empty slot where a story should be. And most people never stop to consider that the missing piece isn't passion, it's history. But there's one more version of this that isn't about a missing story at all. It's about a story this person already has, one that makes joining the group feel less like belonging and more like betrayal.
There's a moment in almost every major tournament where it stops being about football. The flags come out, the anthems play, and somewhere in the crowd the message becomes clear. To cheer for the team is to cheer for something bigger, a country, a culture, a collective we that everyone is just supposed to feel. And for most people, that feeling arrives naturally. It doesn't need explaining. But for some people, something in them quietly resists it. Not the game, not the players, not even the sport. What they're resisting is the assumption that they already belong to something they never consciously chose. Psychology calls this identity autonomy, the deep human need to feel that who you are is something you built, not something you were handed. When belonging is presented as automatic, you were born here, so this is yours, so you should feel this. People with a strong need for identity autonomy don't feel included. They feel assigned, and something in them refuses to perform an emotion on demand just because the calendar says it's time. Picture someone who has spent years quietly untangling the identities that were placed on them before they were old enough to choose. Religion, nationality, tradition, not because any of those things are wrong, but because they needed to know which parts were actually theirs. So when a tournament rolls around and the world says your team is playing, they don't feel the pull because they've made a private decision, maybe without even realizing it, that they'll only carry what they consciously picked up. Everything else they set down. This isn't cynicism, it's not arrogance. It's someone taking their inner life seriously enough to refuse the shortcut of borrowed belonging, even when the shortcut comes wrapped in something as innocent as a football match. And now that you've seen all four, you probably realize something. None of them are indifferent. None of them are missing something everyone else has. They're all, in their own way, taking something seriously that most people never think to examine. And understanding why you don't watch, or why someone you know doesn't, is one thing. What's harder is sitting with the question of what it's actually costing you. And that question cuts both ways. Whether you're in the room cheering or sitting quietly while everyone else does, there's something underneath your reaction that you might not have looked at yet. And that's exactly where we're going next. So let's slow down for a second. If you don't watch and you recognized yourself in any of those four, the question worth asking isn't whether you're right or wrong for opting out. The question is whether what you're protecting is actually serving you. Because there's a difference between a boundary you chose and a wall that built itself around you while you weren't paying attention. Are you opting out because it genuinely doesn't fit who you are? Or because somewhere along the way, caring about something you couldn't control became too expensive and you just never reopened that account? And if you do watch, if you felt every one of those 90 minutes, the question is just as honest. Is the belonging you feel during a tournament something you actually cultivated, or is it the easiest version of connection available? Because there's a difference between joy you built and joy you borrowed. Both feel real in the moment. Only one of them stays when the final whistle blows. Neither answer makes you more evolved or less alive than the person next to you, but one of them is worth knowing. The people who don't watch aren't opting out of joy, and the people who do aren't settling for something shallow. They're all just answering the same quiet question in different ways. What am I willing to feel, and what does it cost me? Here's what all four of these have in common, whether it's identity, control, history, or belonging. None of them are really about football. The match is just where the pattern showed up. These same four postures are playing out in your relationships, your career, your friendships, anywhere life asks you to feel something in public, alongside people you didn't choose, toward an outcome you can't guarantee. The person who can't sit still for 90 minutes probably can't sit still with uncertainty in their marriage. The person who stopped attaching to outcomes they can't control probably stopped attaching to people the same way. The person waiting for a story to follow is probably waiting in more places than just sport. And the person who refuses borrowed identity is probably doing it in rooms far more important than a living room with a screen on the wall. The World Cup just has a way of making the invisible visible, because for a few weeks, the whole world is openly, unashamedly feeling something together. And how you respond to that tells you more about yourself than you might have expected from a ball and a net. You don't have to watch. You don't have to feel what everyone else is feeling. You don't have to perform belonging that was never really yours to begin with. But it's worth knowing why you don't, because the answer to that question never really stops at football. Take care of yourself. Pay attention to the simple things, because in the end, it's the simple things that make life amazing. Peace.